the American Constitution and the Quran. In the United States, the Constitution is more sacred than the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, and the Vedas combined. One may violate any holy book as much as they want, but not the Constitution. In Muslim countries, it is different. One may violate the law and the Constitution because they hold no sacred value, but also the Quran when it is misinterpreted by religious scholarship. Let's take a contemporary example. For decades, gun regulations in the United States have caused thousands of deaths per year, yet no president has been able to change them. Why? Because the right to bear arms is protected by the Constitution, specifically by the Second Amendment, which dates back to 1791. The initiative to amend the Constitution lies with Congress, requiring approval by 2/3 of its members, or with a federal convention upon the request of 2/3 of the member states. The proposed amendment must then be ratified by 3/4 of the states in the Union. The Second Amendment was not initially intended to address a need for self-defense, something that was not widely claimed at the time. Instead, it derived its legitimacy from the third paragraph of the Declaration of Independence 1776, which states, "Governments are instituted among men to secure these rights, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." Whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute a new government. It is their right. It is their duty to throw off such government. It was to provide citizens with the means to exercise this right and duty that this amendment was proposed and ratified in 1791, stating, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." In reality, the American founding fathers were inspired by the French Revolution of 1789, as this concept of a militia can also be found in the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. Since the United States has never experienced a coup d'etat in its history, this idea eventually lost its original meaning and became, over time, merely a right to self-defense. When I first became interested in this issue, I also discovered that this idea had an equivalent in the political philosophy of Islam during the time of the first 4 caliphs. Here's how. After the Prophet's death, Abu Bakr was chosen as the first caliph. Addressing those who had elected him, he said, "Here I am, entrusted with governing you. If I act rightly, support me. If I act wrongly, correct me." Telling the truth to the one in power is an act of devotion. Hiding it from him is a betrayal. At that moment, someone in the crowd raised his sword and shouted, "If you act wrongly, we will set you straight with this." Isn't this response from the Bedouin the equivalent of the Second Amendment? Indeed, the third caliph, Uthman, was killed by rebels who accused him of nepotism. While they were guided by a divine text, the Quran, Muslims did not preserve this political philosophy, whereas Americans, guided by a human text, still uphold it today. Why did things work well for the Americans, but not for the Muslims? Because just a quarter of a century after this principle was established, the governor of Damascus, Muawiyah, overthrew the legitimate caliph, Ali, and established hereditary rule. The people did not rise up, nor did the religious scholars oppose this bid'ah. On the contrary, over the centuries, they worked to turn it into an article of faith, even though hereditary monarchy was alien to both Islamic doctrine and Arab history. In pre-Islamic Arabia, there were no monarchs. It was more like a republic of merchants, where tribes and families coexisted, without any central authority above them. The Prophet himself neither established a monarchy nor appointed a successor, leaving it to the Muslims to decide what suited them best. Islam was the religion best suited to promoting a democratic political philosophy, but religious scholars preferred despotism, the rule of individuals rather than institutions. Since then, Muslim societies have entered a continuous era of despotism in all its forms. Dynastic caliphates and monarchies, commanders of the faithful, lifetime presidencies, supreme leaders, and hereditary republics. Despotism is the only political model that Arabs and Muslims have known throughout their history. What was initially an aberration became a sunnah, an orthodoxy. Another question. Why, despite their obsession with Salaf, did Muslims follow the example of Muawiyah rather than that of Abu Bakr? Answer. Because religious scholars and jurists erased the democratic principle to accommodate religious despotism, which manipulated the Quran and Hadith just as modern despots manipulate their constitutions.